بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد بن عبد الله النبي الصادق الأمين، وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين، وعلى من اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين، اللهم آمين. اللهم ارفع البلاء والوباء عنا رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tonight we will be done, inshallah, the Tafsir of the Ayah 283. And the last part of the Ayah, talking about the one who is concealing the testimony, وَمَنْ يَكْتُمْهَا فَإِنَّهُ آثِمٌ قَلْبُهُ, and he who conceals it, his heart will be sinner. So we said, let's talk about the heart and the relationship between the heart and the mind. And we talked first about the meaning of the word heart, qalb, and the word mind, aql, or consciousness, in Qur'an, and how did scholars throughout the history understood it. We talked about certain scholars, starting with Imam Ghazali, Shaykh al-Islam bin Taymiyyah, and so on. And we talked recently Ibn Ashur, rahimahumullah jami'an. And we said tonight we will talk about another scholar, and let's see how did he discuss it. But before going through the discussion for tonight, I have some reflections regarding the pandemic, this coronavirus issue. Noticing that the unfortunate are the ones who are suffering most. Look at the world, all over the world. Muslims or non-Muslims. Look at Muslims, Rohingya, what they are going through this situation. And no one talks now, no one cares now. Look at Muslims in India, how the Indian government is going against Muslims, accusing them of spreading this coronavirus. Look at the refugees, the way their situation. Look at the even minorities in this country. They talk about the Afro-Americans in New York. They are 14% of the population, but the infections among the infected cases and the death cases, the percentage goes about more than 40%. And look at the people under occupation. Go to Palestine. Jerusalem is claimed to be their capital. And look the way they are dealing with people in Jerusalem, not in the West Bank. In Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem, not in West Jerusalem. When some people started taking on their own the help to help people who can't be infected in this pandemic, and giving them some material like masks and others, the Israeli occupiers came and they started harassing them. And if they find an Arab, a worker, they doubt that he is infected by this disease, they just throw him at the borders with the West Bank. So this tells a lot. Another point I would like to talk about is that some are taking advantage of this. Like Myanmar government is taking advantage of this, the occupied forces in Palestine and in Jerusalem, like we said, and in Libya. In Libya, Khalifa Haftar is not just saying there, no, I don't want to stop fighting. He is even attacking, he bombarded a hospital designated for this coronavirus, for this pandemic. And no one talks anything to him. And in the last week, the United Nations Secretary General, he wanted the people in the world, he wanted to have the United Nations or the Security Council to convene in order to issue a resolution asking all people all over the world nowadays to put their arms on, hold on fighting. Let's focus on this pandemic. And the 5 superpower nations, they started disagreeing with each other. The last point is that, you know, they talked in Germany and in many other places in the world, there is now increase in the domestic violence and especially violence against the children. And it's increasing in Germany to the point that now the German government wants to open the schools so that to give the children a break. And this reminds me of a statement said by someone saying that there is difference between a human being and being a human. And I would say, yeah, this is a very profound statement. If we just talk about ourselves as human beings, we have animalistic aspect like animals. But let's the focus be on being humans. If we know how to be humans, then in this case, yeah, we deserve to be human beings. So I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give people the vision and to give Muslims also the vision. And you know, in the history, I was reading an article talking about the health system Muslims had in the past. Why didn't it fail when there were pandemics? It worked and it accommodated people. Yes, there's no 100% cure. There are casualties, unbelievable, no doubt about this, but they kept functioning. And this tells us one more time how much we are losing people all over the world because of the absence of Islam in the political arena. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us on this. Now, going back to the discussion, the scholars we talked about in the last week covering Muslim history throughout, you know, certain centuries. Like we said, starting with al-Ghazali and ending with al-Tahir bin Ashur. But there is an attempt from outside Islam and Islamic culture and Islamic civilization and Islamic intellectuals to define consciousness. But this came from materialists, I mean Marxists. So Marxism believes that matter is everything. And even the consciousness is nothing but the matter. And here, as an example, Stalin said Marx's philosophical materialism holds that the world is by its very nature material, nothing except material, and that the world develops in accordance with the law of movement of the matter. That's it. That's what works. No God. Even in another point, he talked about the brain being just highly developed from the matter. So he says consciousness is secondary derivative since it is a reflection of matter. Consciousness is a reflection of matter. And then he says a reflection of being. That thought is a product of matter which is developed in its development, has reached a high degree of perfection, namely of the brain. So the matter developed and it reached a high degree of development to the brain, which is the organ of the thought. And of course, he drew this from Lenin. He didn't bring this from his own. Lenin said consciousness is only the reflection of being, at best, an approximately true reflection of it. That's it. But now the Marxists, after the collapse of the Soviet bloc, they say, well, you know what, this is the orthodox Marxism. But now we have the structural Marxism. They said, no, it's not in this determinist way. So they started trying to find out something around this to avoid what they call this determinism. Because Marxism said that the matter that shapes the consciousness, that shapes even the social order, that shapes the economic order, and through the development of matter, everything will occur. This culture was very attracting to some people in the world, especially in the Middle East. In the Middle East, the communist parties became very active, especially after the catastrophe, 1948. Communist parties were established in Palestine, in Egypt, in Iraq, and they started calling for this idea. There was a person graduated of Al-Azhar, and he realized that the solution for us is to bring a change in the society based on Islam. But now he is facing these ideas. So he has to present Islam now as the solution. It's not communism, it's not Marxism, it's not capitalism, from intellectual point of view. So he started discussing the basic two theories upon which Marxism is established: the dialectic materialism and the historical materialism. Dialectic materialism is claiming that the world is the matter, the movement of the matter that shapes everything. It's the origin, no God. Even the brain is a development for the matter. And this consciousness is just a reflection of this matter on the brain, which is matter. So for them, al-fikr, consciousness is material and material only. Now, of course, they deny the existence of the creator. So Sheikh Taqi al-Nabhani came and said, look, this claim that matter is the origin and that the matter, the development of matter, what shapes the social and economic order is wrong. Why? Number one, life is not matter. Yes, it is. We have the matters. We see ourselves, flesh. We see the universe around us, water, galaxies. All of this is quote unquote the substance is matter, but it is matter created by creator. It's not running on its own. This matter has certain system and certain regulation, and this system is sustained by God. Without God, this system tells us that there must be God. It's created. And from God came the first information, the first human being started developing his thinking process, Adam alayhi salam. Because the ayah says, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. We talked about it, ayah 31 in Qur'an Kareem. And he taught Adam the asma, the facts about things. So Adam took this primary information and started developing his thinking and teaching his children, and then added to this the human experience, then added to this the scientific experiments, then added to this trial and error in certain areas. But the basic thinking was because of this basic information or previous information or primary information first man used to in his and in her thinking. So now the thinking is not the matter per se. Yes, we need the brain, we need the matter, the object of thinking, which is something under our senses, which is quote unquote matter, and you need this transmission of these things to the brain, and we need the previous information or the primary information or background. The reflection will not at all lead to this consciousness. At times, it can lead if you have some background about the subject. But if you don't have background about the subject matter, there's no way for the matter to develop consciousness. And when the regime, the Soviet regime, was in full application and full power, if a man like me goes to them and tell them, I want to get into this lab, nuclear lab, I have no background about it, but I will by trial and error, as you say that man developed his theories, I will figure out what to do. They will kick me out, or maybe they will arrest me if I start saying this. Why do you say at the bigger scheme that consciousness is the reflection of the being, of the matter? On what basis do you say this? So Sheikh Taqi talked about the thinking process with these four elements. Now, in one writing, he said what caused communists or Marxists to deny the role of the primary information, to just focus on the matter, is the fact that they deny God. Had they accepted the previous information or the primary information, they will be faced by a dilemma they think that they cannot address. So the solution for them is just to deny everything, just say matter is everything and that's it. So they were very dogmatic on this. And because of this mistake, failure, they failed in so many interpretations later on. And the only contribution communism did is that they really subjugated people for over than 70 years. Stalin killed millions of people, not in the World War, but just to establish their power, their authority. And they clashed with the nature of the human being. They denied people to worship, and they claimed that you can't own, there is no ownership at all whatsoever. And when the production went down, they started, compromising. So yeah, they said, okay, we'll allow certain form of ownership at just certain level. And in the Second War, when Stalin realized that Moscow will be occupied by what's his name, Hitler, he realized that he must call people to stand to defend the country, and they cannot defend a country where they cannot even worship. So he opened mosques and opened churches to people. Go ahead and do whatever you want, and of course, at the end they were able to conquer what's his name, Hitler. It's not a good name to mention. So they went against the very nature of the human being. And A person would say now, well, you know what? Why are you bringing this? This is a dead ideology. I'm bringing this because it is part of the human history. We cannot just ignore it and just say, yeah, it's gone, so let's forget about it. That's one point. The second point is that now there are some intellectuals or trying to say that Marx was right, but he was misunderstood. So yeah, we need to discuss this. There is a question here. Salam alaikum is the first. Okay. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Faisal. Barakallah fikum. So we need to realize that these issues need to be addressed, and need to be addressed not based on our emotions. That's one point. The other point, when we define consciousness or thinking process as a process that requires these elements, the brain, of course, the things that we sense and working senses, and transmitting this to the brain, and having primary information or previous information to analyze it and to give us a judgment. A person would say, where is the role of the heart? Of course, when we say four things, we don't mean four things detached from the human soul, from the human body. If you take, as an example, a hypothetical experiment, let's say, okay, we can see by our eyes and hear by our ears. Let's assume that you remove the eyes and the brain outside the body. Would they function? No, they will not function. Or remove the heart. Would they function? No, they wouldn't function. Of course, no one will tell you that they will function. You need this integrated system. You need the body, you need the brain, you need the heart, you need all of these elements to be in working case, so that you can think, and so that you can analyze and function. And you need the decision to think. And based on your decision, how do you want to think? It will tell you what is the outcome. Yani, Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, he went to listen to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إنه فكر وقدر. So he thought, but he thought wrongly. فقتل كيف قدر. And Marx, he thought, لكن فقتل كيف قدر. He thought wrongly. He did not want to recognize God. That was his decision. And it was said that when Darwin came out with his book, The Origin of Species, أصل الأنواع, Marx was skeptical about the book. He didn't like it. Only his colleague Friedrich Engels, because they both together they wrote the manifesto, the first communist, let me say, manifesto. So he told him, look, our theory gives intellectual explanation for the materialism. This gives biological explanation. So it supplements what we say. So then Marx accepted it. Although Darwin was not atheist, Marx was, as we know. So how do you decide to channel your thinking? It affects the outcome. Another point that affects the outcome, do we accept and admit that the thinking process has certain parameters, certain limitations or not? Can I think in anything or not? If we realize that the human thinking, the thinking process, consists of those elements, and of course the whole body and functioning and the soul and the heart, because there is no way to think without this. If we realize that this thinking is process is a process in which the entire body almost will contribute, to which the entire body will contribute, not just the brain, not just the senses, but the will, even the human will contributes to this. So now we say, wait a minute, I can't think in anything, because the thing which I want to think about must be under our perception. So if it is not under our perception, I cannot think. What's the impact of this? Let me check the questions. Okay. Some Middle Eastern countries like Iraq, Syria. Okay. Yeah, all of the influence was all over. It's not just in one area. So, as an example, we look at this universe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. We reach from this that this system cannot be sustained. Thus, it has to have sustainer. There must be God. There must be creator. Okay, this much is understood. But after that, how does this creator look like? He's a creator. By definition, beyond our perception. So how can I say, how does he look like? If he tells us about his attributes, then we will take what he told us as is, at its surface value. So go beyond this and started discussing about the attributes. Are they part of the essence, or are they not part of the essence? This is beyond our perception. Start discussing, okay, Qur'an is the book God sent to us. Okay, we believe in this because we see that it's miraculous. But is this Qur'an also created like us or not? This is beyond our perception. How can we get into this discussion? That's why it was reported, when this point was brought up during the Abbas era, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal first, he just kept saying that it's not created. He refused to say that it is created. Actually, I would rephrase it. He refused to say that Quran is created. And only after he was released from jail, after that, he said it is not created. But at the beginning, he just refused to say Quran is created. There is difference between both positions. But at the same time, as Ibn Taymiyyah said, that we cannot say that it is eternal. I would say the whole discussion whether Quran is created or not is beyond our perception. That's it. We need this Quran is miraculous. It's not from man. It's not from Arabs. It's not from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is from God. Stop there. Now, instead of spending this effort in understanding, trying to understand whether it's created or not, put the effort on how to understand this book. This is the challenge which we are facing. The challenge which we are facing, how to understand it, how to relate it to our actions. So that's what we need to keep in mind. So the definition that Sheikh Taqi brought to the thinking process, it talks about the sensing certain things through our sensation, and then transmitting this sensation to the brain with the presence or the existence of primary information that will help in the interpretation or in explaining the situation. This definition helps in identifying the role of mind. So later on, when Sharia comes, the role of revelation, it also helps us in identifying the sphere of mind. So the wahi and reason, each has its sphere. So to understand wahi, we need language, we need human effort, we need aql, we need to understand the reality, we need to understand the language. All of this is a human effort. And to understand this, we need certain usul fiqh. Now, if we come and ask ourselves basic question, why did God ask us to pray Maghrib 3 rak'ahs, not 4? And why did God ask us to pray Fajr 2 rak'ahs? How can I get an answer through my intellect? I cannot, because of one reason. This is beyond our perception. Now, if God told us the legal cause, then we try to understand the legal cause in order to see how can we implement it. But in this case, in the number of rak'at, there is no legal cause associated with the salah. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." That's it. Pray as you see me praying. It was reported that he prayed in different ways. There are some details, some basics, some arkan, some sunan. So it's transmitted to us as such. So we understand it and we try it. But why? It's beyond our sensation. Why did Qur'an ask us to leave sail in the Jumu'ah? This is associated with legal cause, in order not to be occupied by our dunya from Salatul Jumu'ah, as an example. So we can exercise usul fiqh and extend this illah to other illahs and so on. Why did Islam allow this and allow that? We look to the evidences. You can look at one evidence and multiple evidences, and you will see if there can be a illah derived from this or not. But the raw material is the revelation, and the aql is a tool to understand the revelation. Now, can there be a conflict between the wahi and the revelation? Shaykh al-Islam bin Taymiyyah gave a very profound statement. He said, لا يوجد تعارض بين صحيح المنقول وصريح المعقول. There is no conflict. You will never find a conflict between authentic text proving that it is authentic, because there are some hadith which are not authentic. But if the text is proven to be authentic, of course includes the entire Qur'an and it includes the authentic Sunnah. So if the text is proven to be authentic, then you will never see it conflicting with conclusive fact established by reason. There's no conflict. The conflict at time, either what you say is scientific fact, it's not a fact, it's theory, it's not proven to be authentic or correct, or the evidence which you are talking about, either your understanding there is wrong in it, mistake in the understanding, or the whole text is questionable. But you cannot find conflict between Sahih al-Manqul, the authentic text, and Sahih al-Ma'qul, and very conclusive undisputed fact. So defining this thinking process helps us in also defining the role of reason when we talk about the relationship between revelation and reason, al-wahy wal-aql. Another point which obviously he didn't talk about, which is the role of the human soul and the role of the qalb in this process. He didn't discuss it. But now you are not bound by his definition as he defined it. Now you can say, look, there is a relationship between the brain and between the qalb, the heart, of course. The whole the heart is that which provides brain with blood, and the brain that provides heart also with the nerve system. And of course the heart has its own nerve system, and it has also a link to another to the brain in terms of brain system. You need a doctor to explain this, but there is sophisticated relationship between heart and brain. They are not functioning in a vacuum, and they are not functioning separated from each other. So in the thinking process, I would say you cannot deny the role of the intellect, of the heart, but the tool is the brain, the tool of thinking. The basis of thinking is the brain, and everything goes to the brain. And now the neurologists, they were able to even talk about which part of brain is responsible for what activity. This side is for memory, this side for taste, this side for sight, and the stem of the brain is responsible for this, and so on and so forth. This is known. It's the brain, it's not the heart. But the heart, like Ibn Ashur said, metaphorically speaking, it is used to refer to the consciousness, not because the heart is the basis or the organ, but rather because of the relationship, this complicated relationship between heart and between brain. And this is what Ibn Taymiyyah actually tried to say when he mixed between them together. We said he listened to what medical experts said, that it is the brain, and he took from Ahmad bin Hanbal his assertion that the thinking, but also from the heart. But maybe the criticism which we have is that he said that the thinking starts with the brain, with the heart, and then goes up to the brain. That is questionable. But no one can deny the relationship between the heart and between the brain. So we need to realize that the thinking process has limitations. And one important component is the primary information. And those who deny the primary information, they do so only for the sole purpose of denying God. Because if they admit that there is information needed, okay, where did the first information, the first thinking process man ever had in the earth, where did it come from? It's not from the matter, it must be from outside the matter. So they have to admit the creator, God, Allahu Akbar, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So having said this, we conclude the tafsir of the ayah 283, and inshallah Rabbil Alameen, next week we'll move to the ayah 264. To 84, sorry. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. Allahumma arfa' al-bala'a wal-waba'a anna. Is there any question, please? Okay. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك اللهم ونتوب إليك اللهم اجعل اجتماعنا هذا اجتماعا معصوما واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا مرحوما ولا تدع فينا ولا بيننا شقيا ولا محروما والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر اللهم ارفع البلاء والوباء عنا رب العالمين اللهم آمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.